Thank you for tuning in to this webinar on performance management or PMAP interim reviews. We're about halfway through the performance cycle, which means it's time for supervisors to have an interim review meeting with employees to provide feedback on performance. This webinar will review steps that need to be taken and provide some information and suggestions for how to conduct these interim reviews. The interim PMAP reviews are due by the end of October, so October 31st. I do want to mention that some offices or divisions may have defined other kinds of timing for these progress reviews. For example, some may elect to do quarterly reviews. So if you're not sure, you should check with your supervisor or others in your office. These reviews are vital to managing performance as they provide an opportunity for the employee and supervisor to talk about how the supervisor views the employee's performance. Of course, regular feedback should be given often throughout the year, but the interim review is a formal opportunity to touch base and review the feedback that you've been giving throughout the year. If regular feedback is not occurring, you run the risk of becoming misaligned in perspective. And what I mean by that is employees may think, no news is good news, I must be doing great, while the supervisor actually has concerns but just hasn't expressed them yet. So they're not aligned, they're not on the same page. Regular feedback and this formal interim review helps prevent this from happening so that no employee is supported. Interim reviews are not subject to the dispute resolution process. Only final year-end ratings are subject to dispute resolution. Really, 5 key actions need to happen to complete interim PMAP meetings. First, supervisors need to prepare for the meeting by gathering relevant information related to the employee's performance. Second, you actually have the meeting with the employee to provide your feedback. Third, if you are dealing with unsatisfactory or needs improvement kind of performance, you come up with a plan to improve the performance. You make any needed updates to the performance plan. And then finally, both the supervisor and the employee sign and date the PMAP cover page. So let's review these in more detail. To prepare for the review, you obviously need to schedule the meeting, let the employee know the purpose of the meeting, and ask him or her to come prepared to discuss his or her perspective of performance. What does he or she think they've accomplished throughout the year? What are they proud of? What do they think they need to work on? The employee should also be prepared to talk about any changes that might be made to the performance plan. The supervisor needs to take time to review performance information, which can come from any number of sources. We recommend supervisors keep an employee file where they record relevant information about performance throughout the year. This is sometimes referred to as a significant events file, and it's a place where you keep notes about the employee's accomplishments, successes, kudos from customers, or anything else that you've observed about their performance. You also document areas where the employee needs improvement and any actions that have or have not been taken to improve. And I realize it's difficult to make time in your busy schedule to keep this kind of file up to date, but it is truly better to take time to keep track of performance details over the course of the year rather than try to remember those details 3, 4, 6 months later. If you ask your employees to do some kind of self-evaluation where they maybe write down what they think they've accomplished or how they think they're doing related to the competencies, that would be another source of information to review. It's also a good idea to take into consideration any customer or peer feedback that you've received during the year. A final thing to do to prepare for the review is to really nail down the message you want to send to the employee. Especially if you're new to doing PMAPs, it's a good idea to jot down bullet points or talking points so that you make sure you cover everything you want to cover in that meeting. Consider doing this for each and every competency. In the review meeting itself, the recommendation is to go through each competency one at a time and discuss what you've observed in their performance and how you think they're doing so far. Focus on the elements of the performance plan, or the PMAP, that you created and reviewed and agreed to with the employee at the beginning of the cycle. And make sure not to get away from the key messages you want to send. For example, if the message is the employee is strong on 4 of the 5 competencies but needs improvement on 1, make sure that point does not get lost in the conversation. Make sure the employee leaves knowing she's doing great on 4 of the 5 and there's just this one that she needs help on. Say it over and over again if necessary so the employee does not get caught up unnecessarily with the idea that improvement is needed in one area. Sometimes people can kind of focus and feel that improvement or development is a bad thing, and if that's not what you're feeling, you need to make sure that the employee leaves the meeting knowing that. A few words on qualities of effective coaching and feedback that you should keep in mind. Here's a model that I like to use. You can see candid is at the top of the model. This means that everybody deserves to know where they stand, so be honest and don't sugarcoat the message. Specific is kind of related to action-focused in that you provide details about what you've observed. Positive and developmental, this means letting the person know what they're doing right as well as what can be improved. Frequent means that although you're having this one formal meeting in the middle of the performance cycle, feedback should also be given throughout the performance cycle on a regular basis. Timely means that feedback is best given right after you've observed whatever performance you want to give feedback on. If you are providing feedback on something that you witnessed 4 months ago, and this is the first time the employee is hearing about it, your message will not be as effective as if you had addressed the performance right away. And this is true for both positive and developmental feedback. Action focus means the supervisor and the employee agree to specific actions that should be taken. And finally, feedback should be job related, which means you're tying it back to the performance plan. So as I said, you're focusing on the elements of the performance plan that was created in the beginning of the year, but sometimes there's other performance that is unexpected and is now relevant. And talk about those and whether to include them in the plan. Maybe there's new kinds of work that the employee is doing that you didn't foresee at the beginning of the year. Now's the time to update that PMAP. To close the meeting, you're going to just quickly summarize the discussion. That's that key message that you want the employee to walk away with. If there's any kind of follow-up that needs to happen, be sure to schedule it right away so that you keep momentum going and that follow-up doesn't get lost in the midst of all the other work that you do. An overall performance rating is not required by CDHS at this interim review. There is space on the PMAP cover page to include one if you want to, but it's not required. If you don't give one, just write rating not given in that space. I think it's fair to, if employees asked or if you feel it would be helpful, to maybe provide kind of a ballpark rating of where you think they're at this mid-year, but making sure that the employee is clear. If I'm kind of feeling you're a 2 right now, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be a 2 at the end of the year. So just kind of keep that in mind. What's really important is that the employee has a clear understanding of how the supervisor views performance. Both the employee and the supervisor sign and date the PMAP cover page. If you have a case where the employee refuses to sign, you make that notation on the cover page, indicate when the meeting was held. The employee is still held accountable to the PMAP even if they refuse to sign it. The cover page is not sent to Human Resources at this time. Instead, you just keep it in your supervisor file or wherever else in your office that you keep PMAPs. Suggestions for how to manage performance that is not meeting expectations. You identify what specifically needs to improve and come up with a plan for what actions need to be taken, by whom, by when. It is very appropriate to ask the employee for suggestions on what actions he or she feels might help. What kind of support is needed? Does the employee need a refresher on how to do certain job duties or tasks? Are there manuals, policies, procedures that need to be reviewed because there's some lack of understanding? Does the employee need to be paired with a mentor or another employee to help them learn whatever it is they're not doing correctly? Do you need more regular reviews of performance to talk about these issues? And be sure to follow up to determine progress. A few notes on performance improvement plans, sometimes called PIPs. These are informal. plans to improve performance. They are not formal corrective actions that are associated with any kind of personnel rules. PIPs are not placed in the employee's formal personnel file in HR. Instead, they reside in your supervisor file. A PIP is simply a document or a memo. It's a Word document where you list the areas that need improvement, the actions to take, what the employee is going to do, what the supervisor will do, the timing around it, by when will these actions take place, and any follow-up and review that's scheduled to review performance again and see if improvement has taken place. To quickly summarize the key takeaways, these are the key messages I want you to leave with today. Interim reviews are due by the end of October. Make sure the employee knows where they stand related to performance so there's no surprises at year end. And if you have questions about PMAPs, a good place to start is with your HR specialist. And if he or she doesn't know the answer, he or she will find someone who does, and we'll make sure we get you the information you need. So this concludes the webinar. I want to thank you for watching, and thank you for all you do for CDHS, and have a great day.